Hello, my Crystal Loves Texas Facebook family and YouTube family. Hello, my wonderful co-hostess, Rebecca Williams. We are back. We are back.
How you feeling, Crystal?
I feel so much better, Rebecca.
I
feel so much better.
I'm sick.
I have. I've been trying to get on top of these really severe allergies, but I think I finally got on top of it.
You have,
Yeah.
because you sound so
good.
much better.
I'm good. I'm good. I feel so much better. But Rebecca, we're not here a minute too soon, not a moment too soon.
No, we're not. We're not.
Because we heard something yesterday that really kind of blew our hair back because we weren't expecting it.
Right.
And that is
the vouchers have passed.
The
vouchers have passed.
School vouchers in Texas are here. So, actually, Rebecca, what we are trying to figure out, we don't lay down and die like that. Okay? Yes, they have passed. But, so what are we doing now? What are we going to do now? And that's always got to be
the game plan.
Our game plan. It's not, oh, woe is me, this has happened, what are we going to do now? What we've got to make sure that we are prepared to do as teachers, as the community, as champions for public education, we've got to make sure that we are ready to step in, and wherever those vouchers are going to be taking away from public education and what should be allotted to our schools, how are we going to fill that gap? What kind of things are we going to do?
You know what, Crystal, to be honest,
Yeah,
and very transparent,
yeah,
I have not thought that far ahead.
Well,
the reason I haven't was because the news, first of all, came unexpected.
Yeah.
They passed the bill at 4:00 in the morning, yesterday morning.
And we didn't expect a vote on it until when?
We didn't expect a vote on it until June, actually the last day of legislative session.
Right.
Phone calls were made.
Yes.
Threatening phone calls.
Absolutely. From the top.
From the top of our federal government, right? And,
Absolutely.
Here we are. So normally, and Crystal always looks to me because she calls me the little Miss Strategist. This is the first time I have no ideas.
No. And when you're stunned, don't ever show them your stunned hand.
Yeah, but I want to be transparent with our audience.
Well, and that's okay. But there's never no game plan. It's just a matter of pulling one together.
Yeah.
Yes, because what we know has to happen is this. We have got to put ourselves in a situation whereby our public schools are not going to see the disadvantage of this. Yes, it is true. The funding is reallocated, but what can we do to step in to make sure that our students, our teachers, our schools don't see the brunt of that?
And here's what I'm confused, or where there's some miscommunication. And if you are for public school vouchers, please reach out to Crystal and I so you can come on the show.
Yes.
Because I have some questions. Because I was very, very confused with the legislation. And normally, I'm not confused with legislation. I can figure stuff out. But this one, I can't figure out. And
what aspect of it are you talking
about?
The
funding. Okay. The funding aspect. Because
the reallocation.
Because what never made sense to me, and this was always publicized and televised and marketed, but I never understood it.
Right.
How you're going to fully fund public schools and then have money for vouchers.
Right.
Because as I told State Representative Simmons, when we were in Austin, and I can say that publicly, that math didn't make sense to me. How are you going to fund public schools at 100%,
Right.
but then have these vouchers. At some point, something has to give, right?
Right.
So I'm very confused. So if anybody that's out there, and I posed this question a lot when we were in Austin,
Absolutely.
and uh, people on my side of the aisle didn't have an answer,
Right.
because it wasn't fully explained to them either. So I got questions.
And the thing about it is, in all fairness, and I mean this for both sides of the aisles, when we bring forth any type of suggestion that may turn into a bill, that may turn into some type of legislation, I think it is, in all fairness, we should try to be as transparent as possible as to how this is going to happen. Because let's be honest, with clear transparency from the beginning, maybe perhaps there wouldn't have been as much pushback if something had been seen in there that people could say, oh well, okay, I understand how this is going to happen, and not be a detriment to this particular aspect. But when nothing is laid out.
Right, and that's what it was. It was like it was said, okay, we're going to, and they did pass the bill, mind you.
Yes.
They also passed the bill the day before, to fund 100% of the public schools by giving teachers raises and all of that. But then my next question would be, how can you fully fund 100% schools, but then still have money for vouchers? When we know that from the voucher system from Florida to even New Jersey had to stop their voucher system,
Right.
because it didn't work.
Right.
But from Florida to New Jersey to Arizona, how the only, if I'm looking at the voucher system in its totality, I'm seeing where you're literally pulling resources out of the public school, funding resources out of the public school to add money to the vouchers for those private schools. But what I'm trying to figure out is, what is the pathway between funding public schools fully and then the vouchers?
And it not
I'm missing the middle.
and it's not coming from taxpayers.
And it's not so that's
Yeah.
what I'm saying. I do know that we've had a rainy day fund. I do know that. And that rainy day fund was supposed to be given to us during COVID. That never transpired.
Okay.
Surprisingly.
Yeah.
Teachers never saw that money. So I'm confused. There's a lot of missing pieces. So, and not only pro voucher people, if any other of our representatives want to come on the show and explain how, because confusion besets me.
Well, and here's the thing too, Rebecca. Um, I always like to be fair. I think it is one of our pitfalls in the political arena these days is that people will not hear. They will not even lend an open ear to hear what the other side is saying. And if we can hear what each other is saying, maybe we'll be able to better understand the perspective. And with that not even on the table, and with us just saying, okay, I'm going to put this forth. I've got the majority of people behind me that's going to push it. I'm not even going to try to explain it to you. I don't think that's the right approach to take.
It's not.
Yeah.
I don't understand. Like
because all things change. All things change.
And
yes,
money is we don't have enough money to go around, right? So what are we doing? Because
but perhaps we don't know. Perhaps some of those billionaire tycoons, West Texas tycoons, are going to shore up that fund in some way to ensure those vouchers. Who knows? Maybe they're just that generous.
But here's my thing with that too. That's what I'm saying. It's hard for me to come up with a strategic game plan.
Yeah.
When you don't even know the basis of the bill. Like, I mean, we know the basis of it, but you don't know the details of the bill. All we know is, okay, 100% schools, that got passed. And a lot of teachers were celebrating online, but then vouchers got passed the very next morning.
Well, we knew that was coming. We knew that was going to be the trade-off.
Right.
Yeah.
But what in between And the reason, and people might, as the old saying goes, the devil is always in the details, right?
Absolutely.
So, and I know people are like, well, Rebecca, why does that matter? It matters because you have people's jobs on the line.
Right.
It matters because you have your children's futures, and you have your children's educational futures and academic futures to worry about. What is this going to look like for high school seniors that are getting ready to graduate next year? Because we know it's not going to affect seniors this year. What is it going to look like for family planning around? Like it has it has a lot to do with the details. What is it going to look like? Because it's not just legislators involved. These are families involved. You have people who are in rural areas. Shout out to the rural Republicans who did stand their ground.
That's right.
Let me say that. Shout out to the rural Republicans who stood their ground and still said no, and maybe paying a huge political price for that.
Well, but you know what? Like I said at the beginning, all things change. Now we have a situation whereby a vast majority of constituents that supported this administration have basically been spat on.
Yeah.
Okay. And that is something that people don't take lightly, because these people who stood their ground, these are people that show up at the polls all the time. These are people who are serious about their vote. They are serious about making sure that their voice is heard. And they feel like they were completely expelled from the equation this time.
Yeah, and not
And
only
and
that,
they will make sure that that does not go unnoticed. Make no mistake.
you passed the bill at 4 in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
You literally passed the bill at 4 in the morning. My thing was this: two things for me. One, the Democrats, this was one of the biggest issues that was on the floor. The Democrats said, you know what, let's put the bill up for a vote. Right. On a November ballot. Yeah. If you guys believe this strongly about this bill, let
the people decide.
Let the people decide. Because this is going to affect the people.
Right.
They didn't want to do that.
Why?
Because they knew the support, they wouldn't get the support.
And that is the thing. When you steamroll in that manner, and this is nothing more than a proverbial steamroll. Right. When you steamroll in that manner, it comes back on you. It comes back on you. And it comes back on you in ways that are very difficult to recover from.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was just a lot of questions for me. That's one reason why, Crystal, I can't come up with a strategy.
Right.
Because I don't know the details.
Yes.
Well, not just me. Nobody knows. You know what? Let me bring that back. I don't know the details. Now, there might be somebody out there who understands this better than me and can explain this better than me. Because I am sorely confused.
Well, I'm going to pose this, Rebecca, and then I'm going to plug in here so that we can make sure that we're looking at these comments, because I see them coming in. But this is what I want to put to the table, and I want you to speak to for a moment. We're here. Okay? We are here. There's no more going down and lobbying on the steps of the Capitol. Well, we can still do it, but we're basically here. But we have got to hope for the best with this, but some of the things that we said, we know will come to fruition. Some of those being that private schools are not necessarily going to. You can be very selective in who you choose. Okay, you can be selective in who you choose, and every private school is not going to be have open arms for every person who applies. Okay.
I am looking at across the board.
I'm gonna step away, Rebecca. Go ahead.
Especially in one district where the declining enrollment is
catastrophic.
And now you are so let me I'm trying not to be negative and sound negative and speak negative. But I saw a lot of the comments on Facebook yesterday. And I also saw a lot of comments on Instagram. And I looked at a couple TikTok videos too. Um, I understand people's frustration. I do. I get it. I understand it from the seat of an educator. I understand it from a public servant employee, right? I understand it. I get it. Um, I don't necessarily understand it from a parent's perspective because I'm not a parent, but I do have a lot of friends and high school classmates and college classmates who have children that are school aged. And so I'm trying to choose my words as carefully as I possibly can. Um I get it from that perspective. Okay, I will say that. So what's I get everybody's frustration. Y'all, I'm struggling. I'm struggling today. I am.
Don't struggle. That's it.
I'm struggling today because the comments that I've read is that public education is basically dismantled in Texas.
No, well, you know what? I'm not going to say that because that is that would be the perspective of someone who's given up. I refuse to give up on public schools, on public education. I refuse to give up. That's not going to be my perspective. My perspective is, okay, what are we going to do from here? I'm just like Zelensky. What are we going to do at this point? Okay. It's not what has happened. What are we going to do at this point? Because there are some things that are people are willing to die for.
Yeah.
And that's just the case. And I think that public education in America is something that we should be very willing to go to the table for. And shout out to Harvard. Shout out to Harvard because they did not succumb to the steamroll attempt. Even though, money was threatened to be withheld from them, they said, well, you know what? We got the best lawyers in the world.
58 billion
Yes.
was getting ready to be taken away from us.
Yes, we've got the best lawyers in the world, and we're gonna do whatever it takes to make this work. And shout out to Harvard. That's all that I can say. Shout out to Harvard because more. Let's see how many universities follow suit.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Wait. Slow down. Slow down. And the reason I told Crystal to slow down is because there are a lot of universities that is not in the same position as Harvard.
That's true.
Harvard is, first of all, it was the first university founded in America.
Right.
Steaming back to the early 1700s.
Yes.
They have an endowment.
Yes.
Of I read they have an endowment of 100 billion.
Yes.
Close to. So they can afford to stand up.
But here's the
And
thing.
take that hit.
But here's the thing that they are going to do, which is
But all the universities are not in a position where they can do that.
However,
especially the
if they
universities
sue, if they are able to sue,
that have
and they can
state
sue
funding.
successfully, they can sue up on the grounds that gives other universities the ability to have this type of leg to stand on.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if something is deemed unconstitutional, just because Harvard had the money to sue and have that ruled unconstitutional, that means the other smaller ones, they don't have to fight that fight.
Yeah.
So shout out to Harvard. They had the balls to do it. They had the balls to do it.
But how arrogant of you to think that you could go up against the oldest institution. Out of 44 presidents, you had, I'm sorry, 47, Lord mercy. Yes, okay.
You were close to being right. One person can't count as two, so 46. Yeah.
Out of 36 presidents, you had 23 of them to graduate from Harvard. What was the arrogance that made you believe that you could go up against an institution like Harvard University? Like as the kids say, it's the arrogance for me because it's giving very arrogant. Because
that's okay. That's okay.
23 presidents, and you really thought?
So let me ask you this, Rebecca. someone was escorted out of the Pentagon on yesterday. How about that? The day before yesterday.
That one missed me.
Oh, certainly it didn't. The head of the head of the military, Pete Hegseth,
Mm-hmm.
was escorted out. That Miss Rebecca. Okay.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That, that's
I was
okay.
so wrapped up in these vouchers yesterday, y'all. My whole mind was Texas, believe it or not. My whole mind was Texas, vouchers, vouchers.
Well, it
And
was deemed, let me tell you, it was deemed that the leak that happened a few weeks back was a leak that did have information
Signal Gate.
that would be catastrophic if divulged to the wrong parties.
Mm-hmm.
So it was not just a little slip of the tongue, slip of, mind fart or whatever. It wasn't, it was something that
And
was
they
truly.
found out, shout out to Shadow Bannon, Shadow Congress.
Mm-hmm.
They found out that this was not, they did several investigations and found out this was not their first time. And of course, if you have an ounce of common sense, you already know that it couldn't have been their first time because they were too casual with it.
Well,
They've had several conversations,
yeah,
several classified conversations
yes,
over stigma
absolutely. Absolutely, that's the case.
since January the 20th.
Absolutely. And the thing about it is, it's because we've got a situation where people do not know the procedural tactics that need to happen in order to ensure that something is the confidential is not divulged. When you have people who are career military who have been trained to do this for years, who have been in that type of confidential loop for years, they know how to facilitate that. When you grab someone basically off the street who was a what? I think the highest rank major, something captain or whatever, not even and not even in the higher rankings where classified material is divulged. How would someone know that? But
Because I think this is the first time a general has not been.
that's right.
This is the first administration in the history of presidency where this was the first time a general was not the head of the military.
Yeah.
Everybody had generals.
And the thing about it is, it's something to say, and I'm not saying generals are better than anyone else. That's not what I'm saying.
No,
But
they have the experience.
They have the experience,
And that's why they have literally gone up from the ranks all
right.
the way up. They have the experience. So
Absolutely, they do.
They have the business side of the military. Because they just don't award anybody generals. You have to go
Earn that. You have to earn that right.
Yeah.
You have to earn that right.
And it's based solely on qualifications.
Yes.
So,
But okay, well, Rebecca, I'm going to lead us back around to this point because I think it's very important. But at this point, we have got to decide, what do we do now? How does all of this, and we always say this, Rebecca, and I say this constantly, and I hope that people understand it a little bit better now, but how does all of this circle back around to voting? Or does it?
oh, it does. Definitely.
Tell us, Sam.
Because all of those lawmakers that have voted to pass the vouchers,
They've got an election coming up.
They do. And those people weren't just picked saying, hey, you want to be a legislator? Go to Austin.
Yeah.
Okay, was it a job application? Well, technically it was. But nobody well, you hired them to
Absolutely.
be in the seats that they are. So
to work for you.
To work for you. So if you are not pleased with the vouchers, you can go ahead and start voting these people out.
You absolutely can. And you can do that on every level. You can do that on local levels. You can do that on your state levels. You can do that when it comes to your senators and congressmen. And those elections are coming up. Thank goodness that the election cycles and seasons are what they are, because they're in off years.
Mm-hmm.
So we have an opportunity. If you're sick of all of this, if you're really tired of all of the chaos, all of the animosity, I've never lived through any aspect of Americanism, for lack of a better term, where there was so much vitriol and hatred, and this is the kind of thing that was coming from the top. Usually you have whoever is at the top trying to smooth things out. But for things to be coming from the top, there's something that is larger brewing there. And we need to be very, very, if we want to see an America look the way that it needs to look for posterity, we're going to have to do something. You can't sit around and simply say that, you know.
Chris, I have a question.
What's your question?
Um, I had a lot of time to reflect yesterday.
Okay.
Um, and I'm trying to bring this to a very sensitive point without being
Just say it.
without being insensitive. Um, why are teachers, in your opinion, scared to fight?
You know, I think teachers are, I'm not going to say afraid to fight. I think teachers, we don't realize
Specifically teachers in Texas.
we don't realize I think that on a basic level, we don't realize the collective power that we have. And when we looked at those numbers for the last gubernatorial election, and we saw that if all of the teachers in Texas, working and retired, had voted in that last election, that just the teachers, that would have been enough to carry that election in a different direction. Just the teachers, retired and working. Okay, we're talking about what, 200,000 votes? You know what I mean? I mean, and if that had been enough to carry the election, we would have been sitting in a different place. But I think that, Rebecca, just like we've said before, for whatever reason, we are here. We are here. And because we are here now and we're living through this and we're seeing what it's reaping, we're seeing the benefit or lack thereof that has come from all of this. That leaves us in a very strong position. It leaves us in a very strong position.
Only if we take advantage of it.
Well, you know what?
And because here's my frustration with teachers in
Until
section.
let me just finish up with this. Until it affects people in a very personal way, just like we said before, until it affects them in a very personal way, it doesn't. It's no big deal.
Because here's my frustration with
Uh-huh.
teachers in Texas. Like,
Yes.
okay, I don't have any children, so I get it. You know, you come home, you work for 8 hours a day, doing all the teacher things to do.
Right.
And then it's like once you leave that job, a lot of them have to go home and deal with their own families. I'm not insensitive to that. I definitely understand. But at what point do you find the energy and strength to say, I gotta fight? And then because you have some teachers
Yeah.
who will bring their children along with them, who will bring their families along with them. So I can't
And
even
protest.
and protest
Yeah.
and
Absolutely.
have their children involved. So I can't even say, you know, oh well, I my frustration with teachers in Texas, and then the next excuse is, well, we don't have any we don't have any collective bargaining rights, which is true. But nobody does in the South.
Right.
They didn't have bargaining rights in West Virginia. But I remember 3, 4, 5 years ago, all of the teachers in the entire West Virginia was up at that Capitol, and they were not leaving until their demands were met, and they were not leaving until they got collective bargaining. Okay. Teachers in North Carolina, and they took it a step further in North Carolina. They had teachers and janitors and cafeteria workers. Everybody, yeah, got on buses from every part of the state, and they went and they protested and they voted, and now they have a Democratic governor. Yeah. And that was due in part to not just the teachers but that was due to the whole labor movement, but the teachers spearheaded it. Absolutely. New Mexico, the same thing. They had no collective bargaining rights. But you know what? Teachers got up from all across the state and said, we are not going to take this anymore. Absolutely. And rightfully so. And rightfully so. So what is stopping us in Texas from doing it? And I think that's where my frustration with teachers are coming from. Not all of y'all, because there are some of y'all that will fight to the death of you. But it's not enough of us that will do that. And here's the thing. Let me tell you what I've noticed. And this is the scary part. We've got young teachers who do not take part in the political process, which makes me immediately say, what values are being taught to our children? If young teachers say, I don't vote, what are our kids learning? Do we need to stop now? What message is being sent to kids? Do we let oligarchs and people who would love to be dictators? Do we allow that to happen? And everyone for centuries has been looking to us as the golden uh, ticket and symbol of democracy. Do we lay down and take it like that? Is that where we've come to? I don't know. Me looking at every angle of this voucher situation, this voucher thing. Yeah. Is it going to have to be enough of you all lose your jobs for you to wake up? Rebecca, honestly, I think I think that when people start to personally feel the sting, when people begin to personally feel the sting, that is when they react. It's not when you feel the sting and you're telling me about how the sting feels. That's not it. It's about when I feel the sting myself. Because now we were in a very toxic school district. Yeah, we were. And I'm still technically in it. Yeah. In a very toxic school district. Right. And a lot of people left. And Lord knows I don't blame them. Get out, get out, get out. When you see danger, you run. Yes. Right. But now that danger has hit everybody's front door. Every single district in the state of Texas. Nobody is exempt now. Right? Right. So toxicity is going to be knocking at every school district in the state of Texas because resources are going to be pulled from every school district from the state of Texas because those are going to go to the wealthy children who can afford to go to school. I mean, who can afford to pay for school. Right. So what is it now? Is it going to take people losing their jobs? Yeah. Not being able to go to another district, not being able to continue to live where they want to live. I mean, what is it going to take? And I hear, and I don't want to say excuses, but I hear the explanations. I hear. Yeah. But what is it going to take for people to wake up, teachers in Texas? And we're not the only, like I said, I gave you a lot of examples of states that did not have collective bargaining rights. But they went out and they fought, right? You guys seem like y'all are scared to join the unions. Yeah, what is it with that? You guys act like you scared to say something because I don't want to lose my job. I don't want to lose my job. I got a family to feed. And I get it. Y'all, trust me, I get it.
But the thing about it is, here is the truth in that, and both Rebecca and I, we absolutely understand that perspective, but there is power in numbers. If everyone comes together and says, together collectively, we're not going to do this, then you have a situation whereby you have to be listened to.
Right.
And you have to be able, you've carved out a place at the table to be heard. Okay. If everyone says we're not going to do this, but if we have some people who say, well, I don't want to lose my job, but you know what? If at every school, every teacher in that school said, and especially if there's an injustice being done, and if you can feel that. And the thing about it, ladies and gentlemen, don't be the person who only speaks up about an injustice if it happens to you.
We owe us a lot of it. It's a lot.
Don't be the person who only speaks up about an injustice if it happens to you. Just like the old poem goes, and I will bring that back in here because I think it's really relative now. But um, I didn't speak out because it didn't happen to me, and when the injustice finally faced me, there was no one to speak for me.
Right.
Don't you don't ever want to be that person, because you always want someone to be able to stand up and speak on your behalf.
I mean, we're in a situation now, teachers in Texas. We are in a situation now where nobody can go back for you.
Yeah.
Let me you don't let me say that again. We're in a situation now where people can't just go back for you anymore.
And explain what you mean by that, Rebecca.
You can't just rely on the unions to go fight for you.
Well, the unions aren't being given a place at the table.
Right. They're not. Yes, join the union because they have legal things, they have other things that they have. But what people don't understand is that they are the union, right? When you pay your money to join this, you are the union. So you are speaking life into your own career. You're saying, this is what we stand for. This is what we need to do. This is what we want to do. This is the change that we need to make. It's not a group of people standing for you, making decisions for you, telling you. And I think that's what it is too. Teachers for so long have been, tell us what to do. Tell us what to do. Tell us what to do.
Yeah.
We've been conditioned in this field to be told what to do instead
Absolutely.
of making. And I understand that the psychological part of that too.
Yeah.
Because we're in a field where we don't really have autonomy.
Right.
Right? We're being told every second what to do from the top.
Yeah.
So now when it comes to organizing, and when it comes to, and I hope the union presidents of all the unions in Texas, Houston, are listening to me when I say this. We've also been conditioned to have everything done for us.
Absolutely.
As teachers, right? We've been conditioned to have everything done for us. We've been conditioned to be told what to do every minute by minute. You got to get this done. You got to get this, we've been conditioned.
We haven't been driving the train.
Right.
Yeah.
The train has been driven for us. We don't have that luxury anymore. We don't. And the sad reality of this, and it's not even a sad reality, but the reality of the situation now, we got to fight for ourselves, right? We can't depend on principals. We can't, and I'm not saying there are some good principals out there. There are good assistant principals out there, but this has only to do with us. We all we got, and I don't think teachers understand it. We are all we got right now. We can't go run to the politicians. The ones that believe in public education, they're doing all that they can do, but they're outnumbered because they don't have the numbers.
The numbers, yeah.
So, is it going to take for 20,000 of you all to lose your jobs before you get up and decide that you're going to fight? Is it gonna take 45,000 of y'all to lose your jobs and can't go anywhere else?
Because that is the direction that the powers that be would are pushing towards. Okay, it's basically being fed to us that teaching can be done via uh, um, Chat GPT. Teaching can be electronic. You don't need the face to face teachers. You do not need to be able to answer questions. That can be Googled. You do not need the emotional support in the classroom that comes from a human. Those things are not necessary in education. And for that matter, that is not an aspect that should come into the educational spectrum anyway. That's what's being said.
Oh, Bill Gates said himself in Forbes when they interviewed him. He said that in the next 10 years, listen to what I'm saying. In the next 10 years, two groups of people will be irrelevant to the world. Two groups of people will be irrelevant to the world. Teachers and doctors.
How about that?
In 10 years, we will no longer need teachers or doctors because AI will take care of all of that.
And Rebecca, with all due respect to Bill Gates, with all due respect to Bill Gates, I beg to differ with that because I believe that there is always going to be a human aspect that is necessary in certain aspects of our existence, regardless of what time and place uh and specter we operate in. There's going to be a human element that is needed there.
Yeah, because he said with the AI intelligence, you can have robots to do the surgeries, to perform the surgeries. You can have robots to issue to issue out the medication that you need.
Well, but the thing about it is, and you can have robots doing all that now. There's technology to do that now. But
And then, of course, with AI technology, what use is of a teacher with AI technology?
well, you can't cry on the shoulder of a robot. You cannot have a robot say, okay, you know what? I'll go ahead and let me go ahead and give you lunch money today because I know that I talked to your mom and I know it's hard right now. Don't worry about paying me back. There's certain things that robots can't do and that robots won't do, that the human element will always be necessary.
But this is the prevailing view.
Yeah.
This is the prevailing view. And when I tell people all the time, and there's people in the group that we belong to on Facebook, yes, who say, "Oh my God, you're so negative." No, I'm telling you what reality is. There is not.
I'm not negative.
Not you.
I'm not negative.
But there are people out there who don't believe that there is any use for your career.
Well, for that matter,
and this is why laws are being made all over the United States, not just Texas, all over the United States. Laws are being made to phase you out. Is that not enough for you to get up and say, you know what?
But Rebecca, here's the thing. Technology is a wonderful thing, and technology definitely has its place. But just like what we've seen before, technology is not going to necessarily, it will move teachers into a different realm. It cannot take the place of. Yes,
but a lot of people believe
horse and buggy manufacturers. I mean, buggy manufacturers went out of business, but it was replaced by auto manufacturers. The people, the corporations that made the iron lung went out of business, but it was replaced by technology that was more efficient.
So I understand exactly what you said.
Yes.
But the public don't see it that way. And when I say
think the vast majority, I think
when I say the public, I mean the lawmakers, all of these people, they don't see it that way.
No, I think you're being very, very premature when you say the lawmakers. You're talking about a certain segment. of lawmakers. There are plenty of lawmakers who are former teachers who also know. Go ask Tim Walz if he feels like teachers do not have a place. Okay, don't make that a broad paintbrush statement, because all lawmakers are not of that.
But Crystal, we can't ignore the fact that this is the prevailing view.
But it's
Of one side, I get it.
okay. Well, let's make that clear. Let's make that clear.
But it's
Of
still
one
a
side.
prevailing view out
Of
there.
one side,
And it's being pushed
it's being pushed, but
repeatedly.
that is why now it is time for teachers and those of us who sit and those who stand in those shoes to make our voices known. I think the vast majority of people understand the importance. And if you put that question out there, and if you put that statement out there, and ask about, are teachers' jobs important? Everybody in this world who has matriculated in any way has come through the hands of a teacher, either public or private. And I don't think that would be even, there may have been an idea being pushed uh 10 years ago that, that's right. In the year 2000 was supposed to be the end of the world.
Right.
That was the prevailing view of scientists and scientific thinkers and thoughts. But you know what? There are always going to be viewpoints being pushed forward.
But I hear you. But let's not act like it's not relevant, because this is what happened last night. I mean, early yesterday morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is what happened early yesterday morning.
That doesn't make it the prevailing viewpoint all over the nation. Okay. That is where it is right now, because many of us have been lazy, have been not doing our part to be present in the political process. And I think if nothing else, it is a wake up call for us to do just that. Let's be clear, and I think that you and I both agree on this. In the Blue Party in Texas, we've been some lazy folks for a long time. For a long time. If things are, we have not been the people who are pushing ideas and thoughts forward. We have been comfortable in a whole lot of aspects of what's happening to us and around us. And unless it is extremely present in our lives in a very, very pertinent way, we have a tendency to look the other way and say, "Oh well, it's not that bad. It'll be, it'll pass over. It'll pass over."
Yeah, yeah.
And no,
I
that's
agree
not the
with
case.
you.
It's
Right,
not the
I
case.
agree with you. We have a very passive, apathetic viewpoint. Oh, it won't be that bad, or it's okay, or we've weathered hard times before,
And just not do anything about it.
right? And then it's like, wait a minute, wait a minute,
Yeah.
this is something different. Oh, or like people, they always need teachers. It's not going to be that big of a deal.
Well, and the thing about it
Which
is,
that part is true.
but
That part.
well, see, now you just contradicted yourself, because you said that teachers are not going to be necessary.
No, I'm saying no. Don't take the words. I'm saying, wait a minute.
I'm teasing you.
I'm saying the prevailing viewpoint
of some people. Let's be very particular in how that's placed out there. Of some people is that teachers will not have relevancy. And I agree. The prevailing idea of some people is that teachers will no longer have relevancy. And like we said, some people felt that there would no longer be a world. There'd no longer be a space program. There'd no longer be there. You've got pundits out there who will put all types of ideologies forward to see who's going to bite.
Well,
that's the thing.
This is where we are now.
Absolutely, it is where we are now, and there are many people who believe that teachers will not have relevance, but time has proven, and circumstances have proven otherwise many, many times before. But let me ask you this, Rebecca. I just did my research probably about 3 or 4 days ago of some of the most expensive private schools in Houston. And some of the most expensive private schools in Houston are upwards of $45,000 a year. We're talking about K through 8 schools in Houston for people to attend. And even going down to the ones that are the moderately priced per year, those are going to be right at about 14,000 a year, right in the
Probably a
15,000.
higher than that, right? With the cost of inflation.
No, this was this year as far as tuition this year. But here's the thing. That's just the tuition. Okay. There were certain things that I wasn't even aware of, some of the fees that go along with that. There are application fees. There are something else called student use fees.
What is that?
Different. I'm gonna have to. We'll bring that up here the next time, and I'll let you look at things that I didn't even know existed.
Student use fees?
That might add, yeah, that may add another $5,000 to that mix. So we have someone with a $10,000 voucher who
10,500.
okay, dollar, yeah, $10,500 voucher with 3 students, and with 3 students to educate, and they are still short. mm, Even that, we're talking about the cheapest schools, okay? They're still short $15,000, because if that's what the lowest price school is, or the moderately priced school is going for per year, they're short that much. Then they haven't bought the uniforms. Then they haven't gotten the transportation. Then they haven't purchased the books, and all these other things.
Tablets,
So
iPads,
yeah,
laptops.
yeah,
Because I'm sure the parents have to pay for that too.
absolutely. Now, with those things in mind,
Maybe that's what the student use fees are for the iPads.
perhaps that is.
But that's that's still an extra $5,000.
But you know what, Rebecca? Let's go back to this. Let's go back to this. We've got those kind of things that are available in public schools right now. Technology. Because you and I came from a public school where I believe it was Verizon had provided for each of our students a one-to-one laptop.
And see,
we did.
You hopped on, so I'm gonna let you finish.
No, I'm done.
Oh, okay.
But many of these things that it's being touted that public schools just can't provide. Public schools have been quietly providing.
Well, I'm sure public schools ain't been providing MacBooks and iPads and Apple iPads and Apple MacBooks.
Well, I was in a school district that provided iPads.
You don't understand what I'm saying. I'm talking about the expensive, the MacBook.
Well, but the thing about it is, here's the thing. You can have an Acer or an iPad, but if it gets you to the same place on the internet, it really doesn't matter. You understand what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If it gets you to the same website to do your research, who cares what it is? It's technology that is connecting you to a different level of knowledge.
Yeah.
It doesn't care if it's an apple or a strawberry on it. Okay, if it's technology and it's connecting you to even your playing field with those schools that do have that technology, what difference does it make? But public schools have been quietly providing these things and not saying anything about it, and it's being touted that these things are not available.
But wait a minute. And that's the point that I've been making ever since I became a teacher.
Yes.
If the state would do its job. Here's my my gripe, and it's been my gripe forever.
Okay.
The state kept saying public schools are bad. Well, one group of people in the state, legislature and state government. But you have been over education in the state
30 years. At least.
Since 1991.
Yeah.
Because that's when Bush became governor. and it's switched over. Everything's switched over in a
Right.
So you have defunded the education budget year after year after year after year.
Right.
You have defunded that. So if the public schools are so terrible and so bad, why don't you, state of Texas, fund it 100% completely
And see what happens.
and totally, and you won't have these problems?
That's right.
You get upset over curriculum, but TEA, you're in charge of curriculum.
Right.
You are upset about the discipline and the problems, but State Board of Education, that's your job. You
Right.
set the policies for that.
Right.
So if it's so bad and it's so terrible, whose fault is that?
Right.
All of that money that he spent, and when I say he, I mean the governor. Apparently, folks got in trouble for calling him his nickname.
Yeah.
So, but if you spent half the time, because the whole entire time this whole voucher thing was going on,
Right.
the marketing of the voucher thing, he was at this private school across this state, he was at this, all of that money you spent marketing to get this pass, that is time, money, and effort that could have went into public education.
Right.
And that's my point. We have had, and DS used to say this all the time, who
Yes.
was on our campus. He said, you guys use these cheap ploys to band-aid the problem when you have the cure right here
And here's the thing. And
to fix the problem.
and let's go back to this.
I don't, it always kind of disturbs me that private companies had to step in. We talk about Verizon, we talk about all of these private companies
Yeah.
have to step in. And now I know it's a tax write-off for them, I get it, but they have to step in
To
and
provide these things
to
that
cover costs for these things and provide these things when it's the state of Texas who should have been providing this all along.
absolutely.
Why do these
Absolutely.
private companies have to come in? Because then at this point, what are people electing you for?
And here's the thing, Rebecca, and then we're gonna unfortunately we gotta end it on this note, but let's be clear, Rebecca, let's be really, really clear about this. 95% of those people probably sitting in those elected positions in Austin are products of what?
Public schools.
And why are we crushing our own public schools? Why are we touting something that we know is not in our own best interest? For as hard as we fought for these public schools and to be products of these public schools, good, bad, or indifferent, most of the people who are sitting there making these decisions are products of these public schools. And you're not so bad. If they were so bad, and you're a product of them, what is that saying? They're not perfect, but nothing is going to be perfect. I came from a private school and it was not perfect. But I'm a proud product of it, and I'm not going to do anything to disparage it.
But that's my thing. I just, for the life of me, I can't. You destroy it and then you say it's not working. So, hey, let's go fund this instead and destroy it even more
Right.
when you've been responsible for it. And that's the thing. And I don't understand why people have fallen for the okie doke, because state of Texas, this has been your problem for the last 30 years.
Let's see if we can get a legislator on here, Rebecca. If we can call a legislator in, or maybe even have a couple. I would even like to get a Republican legislator on.
Good luck with that.
Well, let's just see. Let's just, the thing about it is it's not about bashing anybody at this point. or at any point, but we just want to get some answers. What can we expect now?
Yeah.
How can we expect if we've got if part of this is to shore up public schools? Part of this, there were funds allocated for public schools.
Right.
Okay, let's see how this is going to help public schools. Let's see how it's going to be proposed that it is going to be a wonderful modicum of choice for private schools too.
Also, we want to talk about this one last thing before we jump off air. Wraparound services in
Wow.
Houston Independent School District.
Wow.
So for the
Explain what wraparound services are.
So wraparound services was I don't want to say organization, but it was an entity that was added into HISD in 2018 to help families who are low income and who are low income
and have a pervasive
need so that the school could meet the need. One of the biggest things that we were finding out as teachers, and it was loads of data and research,
right?
A lot of kids were coming to school in poverty, like abject poverty in some instances. They were homeless. Families were homeless. Families were working 2, 3, 4 jobs just to make ends meet. Kids were not eating. Kids had hygienic problems.
No lights and water.
They had no lights and water. Parents didn't have transportation because even because of funding being cut.
And it was on the cusp. And it was absolutely on the cusp of, was that Ike?
Right. And not just Ike, but we've had several natural disasters
yes,
that have wrecked families and things like that. So wraparound was a service that was used for all the, and just wasn't for low income. It was for anybody who needed the services for whatever reason, because they helped connect camps for the summer.
It connected families with the resources that were available.
Right. They brought in organizations from the school STEM program. So it was a lot of things that wraparound did for a student, and it was just it was an entity that was brought in. And in 2016, it was passed. In 2017, I was one of the co-authors of the wraparound services. I worked on that legislation. It was passed unanimously by the elected board, and it had done a service. I have had so many teachers across HISD, even at the so-called affluent schools in HISD, because even you had wraparound services even for the high schools. One teacher told me yesterday they brought in like drug counselors to wraparound services have brought in drug counselors for kids who were being addicted to hardcore drugs, and they had counseling services. So wraparound did so much for every single environment, and unfortunately, it was cut.
And okay.
It was getting a little.
That's okay. Well, it was cut by the current administration.
It was cut by the current administration. And I'm fighting back tears because y'all don't understand how hard we worked to get that passed. And the wraparound services were supposed to, they have this thing called sunrise centers, which are not being used at all. They built like some 20, 30
they were not on campus. The services were not on campus.
No, they were like miles away from campuses, and then they didn't even provide the services that they didn't provide the wealth of services that families needed for the issues and circumstances that they had gone through. That was cut. So they had been chopping off major pieces of wraparound, but wraparound got the last bullet in the coffin last night. And I was already angry about the vouchers, but my anger turned into sadness because like I said, we worked hard. We came from every single angle of what if, how can we, what if this service, what about this service? Like we worked on that piece of legislation, and it was already getting ready to go through the voting process. I literally came in at the tail end, but even at me coming in at the tail end, it was still 9, 10 weeks worth of work. So there were people who put in work way before I even got there to get the services.
And that was just HISD's way with our prior administrations of trying to meet the need that we saw in the classroom every day of the students that we served. You know, things change demographically, things change economically, things change from a socioeconomic way as um as recessions hit, as different natural disasters hit, things change in terms of what's needed by students that we see every day, and we are on the front line of seeing it because we get receive these students in every day. And wraparound was simply a way that Houston Independent School District saw to try to meet the needs of these students that were not being met, so that we could be certain that they continued in their education and had an opportunity to succeed.
Yeah, and I just it was terrible. It's a loss. It's a huge loss. And from what somebody in the union HFC researched that the wraparound, not I'm sorry, not wraparound, that the sunrise centers that was supposed to replace are not even being used.
Oh, I believe that.
It's not even being utilized.
Yeah, because the thing about it is, parents have to try to get there after hours. It's not the kind of thing that these centers are able to see the students during the school day like they were on campus at Wraparound. It was a complete failure from the beginning because it wasn't in a place where it could be utilized fully because of the location. Location
Right.
means everything.
So that's another hit that our district took yesterday. Everybody was talking about declining enrollments. That was another thing that Wraparound did. A lot of people didn't know. Wraparound used to reach out to those kids to see who wasn't coming to school to see what they needed. Okay, I don't have this and this and this, and they took painstakingly time and effort to find those resources for those families so those children could come back to school and graduate. One teacher told me, she reached out to me yesterday, and one of her students who are now in college, in her second year of college, said that if it had not been for wraparound, she would not have graduated, and she would have not gone to college.
Absolutely.
Because the scholarship that the school had offered her wasn't enough, but her wraparound service specialist at her high school
Was able to
reached out to other scholarship opportunities to get her money to go to school.
There you go. Absolutely.
And now the service is gone. So what am I trying to tell teachers? I know I'm sounding very doom and gloom, but you have to understand where I'm coming from. And I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm just telling it like it is. I, as a teacher, I work tirelessly in the classroom and out the classroom. Crystal, I used to complain to Crystal all the time. I was like, Crystal, these kids are getting on my nerves. My last one. She was like, oh, you love them. But I it's hurtful for me to see that that the children who are we are supposed to look after children holistically and make sure that their whole well-being is taken care of. And now it's like, so teachers, what am I trying to say? What I'm trying to say is it's time for us to fight. You see that there are powers that be that are trying to dismantle education from the bottom to the top. They're taking away any aid and help for our children. They're putting us under a microscope. They're doing a lot of things that are unethical, immoral, and they don't care. So we have to care. We have to care enough about our profession. We have to care enough about our families and our communities. And yes, we have to care enough about our jobs to stand up and say enough is enough. You all have taken enough away from our children.
And Rebecca, I think that we are welcoming comments on what we've said tonight because, and we even want suggestions on what people feel they can do and we can do and we can collectively do at this point to come together to start strengthening ourselves in numbers so that we are a formidable um, uh, entity when it comes to regaining what we know the ground that we've lost in public education. And with that in mind, Rebecca, and I'm going to admit a shortcoming tonight. I didn't set up my remote, so I'm going to have to log us out manually. But Rebecca, I think that we have pulled the Band-Aid back on some issues tonight
Yeah.
that we're definitely going to need to look at in a lot of other ways. We are open to suggestions. We by no means feel that we have the answers. We have some answers and we have suggestions, but we think that all of us, and we have to realize too that we have teachers that sit on the opposite side of the aisle. But it's going to be us as teachers that have to come
Yeah, when I
together.
say teachers, I don't mean
All
Democratic
teachers,
teachers,
yes.
Republican teachers, independent teachers. I mean all of us together.
That's right. That's right. And we're going to have to fight for public education because it's at stake for all of us. And with that in mind, Rebecca, as we say every week, even though it may seem difficult, we can do it. We'll see you next
Bye,
week.
guys.
Bye, guys.